So I've lived in a few different places. I remember when I lived in America, growing up in America, born, raised, grew up in Georgia, that programmed me to have a certain perspective. But I was lucky enough where I had a chance to move abroad and live in different places. And that really helped to, I think, change a lot of those perspectives and give me a new view, give me some rebalancing in terms of my worldview and the way I think about certain things. I do think that's a great benefit, and it's a luxury that maybe not everyone has. But if you do have that luxury, I do implore you to, take advantage of it. But that's another topic. I bring that up because one thing that I've learned over the years that maybe goes against what I grew up thinking is online identification. You know, on the internet, you are typically anonymous, unless you choose not to be. Uh, but I don't think that's a good thing, actually. I really don't think anonymity online is a good thing. I honestly believe that every website you go to register on should require you to link your ID. I believe that. I know a lot of people, especially in America, will be like, no, that's going to open up a can of worms. Freedom. I get it. Look, I was born and raised there. I get it. I grew up thinking the same things. But I just think having complete, unfettered anonymity online does more harm than good. That's my personal opinion. That doesn't mean that you go around exposing your information or whatnot. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you go online, you register for an account on a forum or on a social media site, and you have to link your ID. That way you cannot abuse it. And that way, if you are abusive to other people, there's a real consequence where you can be perma-banned. Not just IP banned, which you can get around by a VPN, but permaban based on your actual ID and name. I think that's the best way to control all the misinformation that's out there. There's so much misinformation, and people who are actively spreading misinformation. I know there's this whole idea of freedom of speech, but again, that's a very American-centric perspective. You go to other countries, even other democratic countries, other democracies, they often limit speech, especially when it comes to the press, especially when it comes to people reporting misinformation. In those countries, people do have freedom of speech if it is considered factual. But if they start reporting on things that are conspiracy theories, are not factual, they lose that. And honestly, I'm all for that. Again, this is one of those things where you do have to balance that. I'm not saying unlimited control on that from the government. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there has to be a balance with the government as well, where the government only enforces that on people who are abusing it, only enforces that on people who are actively spreading misinformation. Because you look at a lot of countries now that are just tearing themselves apart. You look at civil wars happening in some countries, genocides happening because people are spreading misinformation without any kind of consequence. And again, that's why you have to control it. You have to link everyone's information. This whole concept of, but no, freedom of speech, freedom, well, laws exist to control people who cannot control themselves. If you are a person who can control yourself and you're not constantly bullying other people, you're not telling people to go kill themselves, you're not telling people to, harm others, you're not spreading false information, well, then the law doesn't affect you. The law doesn't impact you. So I would equate that with driving. Most reasonable people know that you shouldn't drive too fast because you lose control of the car. So most reasonable people would not press down their foot on the gas pedal and go as fast as they could, even without a speed limit. They would still say, oh, well, there's no speed limit, but I'm not going to, put the pedal to the metal and go as fast as I can, because they would have more sense than that. They would limit themselves. They might go a bit faster than what we allow, but still they would have some limits to themselves. It would be very few people who actively just constantly want to go pedal to the metal nonstop. But they exist, and they can bring great harm to other people by causing car accidents, right? And thus we have speed limits to control the people who cannot control themselves. So again, laws exist for that purpose. So I do believe that we need to have an actual registration where if you sign up for any website during the registration process, if you sign up for any website, you have to enter your information, your ID number and your name. I know there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with that. That's perfectly fine. But from my perspective, I do think it brings a lot more in terms of social stability. And I think that's what we need. Stability breeds success. When you have stability in society, when you have stability where people can work together and communicate together, they get more done. They accomplish more. But when you have a society where, for example, you're living in two different realities, where this group has this information that they believe and that group has that information that they believe, instead of working together to build something up, you're focused on fighting each other all the time and tearing each other down. So again, how does that help anything? I mean, and half of those people are the ones saying, we love the country. Well, to be fair, both sides say that, actually. They just say it in different ways, I suppose. But both sides say, we love the country, and yet they spend so much time arguing and fighting and actively avoiding doing anything to actually build up the country and make things better. So again, have that control online. Make sure everyone's living in the same reality. Make sure everyone's sharing the same or similar information, and that people who are actively spreading false information will only do it for a very short time before they get banned. And I think everything would be better. Honest opinion. Again, feel free to disagree. I'm sure a lot of people will. No problem. You're free to do that. And again, if we were to have online your IDs connected to your online identification, you could still do that. You could still express your opinions if you disagree with something. It's just you wouldn't be able to say, you should go die, you should go kill yourself, your family should. Then there would be consequences. Great. That makes everything nicer for everyone. You could still express your opinion, but it would be in a nicer way. So again, I'm just thinking there's got to be some limits. And I do think it will happen at some point in the future. It's one of those things that I think is an inevitability. It's going to happen because I believe that things will get out of control so that laws will have to be passed. And you see it in some countries already. So it's going to happen. And I think it's one of those things where it's better to get on board now so that those laws, the narrative of those laws can be controlled and structured in a more positive way than waiting until those laws have to be forced upon people because shit's already hitting the fan, as they say. Anyway, that's it for me today. Have a great day. See you guys next time.